Alright, good morning everybody. It is time to look at the ETX and try to figure out why it doesn't want to run for very long and what it's having issues with. So it occurred to me I have not checked the play in the exhaust. There seems to be plenty of clearance there, and then, oh yeah, there's a lot of wiggle there, so there's plenty of clearance to let the exhaust valve close properly. Alright, that quick check over, and we checked the ignition, and it seemed to have as strong a spark as the replacement unit that I had, so I'm going to guess that's as good as that gets. So we'll pop the head off, and I think there might have been some seepage around the head gasket, so I'm going to double check how that's fitting together, but we're going to start by just popping the head off and checking the valves and taking a look in the cylinder, and if I have to drain the liquid out of it and pop the cylinder and liner off, then that will be the next step. But step one, let's just pop the head off and I guess I should move my camera further away. Yeah, we'll get this off and then push the engine out of the way and have plenty of room to look at the head. So, but first I'll drop a screw. So the ET1 and the ETX both have their regular length head bolts, and then they have a longer one to hold the exhaust valve rocker in place. So which I'm sure that we've seen before, or we've seen before on my channel, but if this is the first time you're checking in and seeing me take the head off this, don't forget to keep track of that on yours. So, alright, that is very oily. This head gasket is loaded with oil, which is a good sign. And so much carbon in here. And the notch in the intake valve that I tried to make so I could turn it with a flat screwdriver to grind it is there, but that did not work, and I moved on to doing different kinds of stuff for valve grinding. So that carbon cleared off of there, and so much oil on this head gasket. Well, you can see there's a good color ring from where the head gasket is being between the liner. Sorry, pull this back over. So the liner, cylinder liner, and this is a problem you'll remember I had with the ET1, where the steel liner here was down inside, recessed behind the main piston body, and so it wasn't sealing the liner against the head, or the gasket. The gasket was trying to seal against the, was sealing against the body of the engine, and then the liner was a little loose, and so it was leaking compression around the liner and into the water jacket. But let's center this up. I don't know if you can see right here, but the top of the cylinder liner is all very smooth except for a couple spots here where it is dark and it looks like there is a ding or dent or scratch across the top of the liner there, so it's not perfectly smooth. And that might be causing a little bit of compression issue, but it shouldn't be a big deal because that copper gasket, you can see there's matching dark spots on the gasket, and there's even matching dents in the gasket from where those imperfections in the top of the liner are. I think, I could fix this one of two ways. I could put a teeny tiny bit of gasket sealant right around the edge there, and that would guarantee me a good seal, but then of course that would make it harder to get the head gasket off when I need to clean it, because you can see how filthy that piston is. And I'm going to wipe that off. And I'm inspecting the cylinder bore, and it does not actually look that bad, so that's good. So the piston is filthy, the cylinder bore is not bad. I can get the fat palm of my hand in there. Yep, it's so when I seal that with the palm of my hand, it's sucking my palm down pretty good and making compression when I push it up. So if it wasn't doing that, then I know that there was a problem beyond just a little bit of head gasket stuff. So I guess I'm gonna just leave it at the cleaning it and cleaning the head gasket. I'm going to put the head gasket back on in a second, but let's finish checking this head over. So I'm checking my valve seats. I'm holding the valve open and just looking in to make sure that it looks evenly shiny up in there, because the seat you're trying to make is is that focusing at all? I don't know if that's focusing, but the seat is, supposed to stay shiny and smooth regardless of how much carbon buildup there is. But given how filthy the head was, I'm going to pop the exhaust valve off and clean the stem on the exhaust valve at least, because that's going to be filthy. Where is... there. Okay. So, I'm sure you've seen this before. Pop that E-clip off. Don't let the spring fire the valve retainer at you like I just did. And then I'll wipe that real quick. And yeah, the valve seat's not too bad there on the exhaust valve still. run that in pretty well when I did that earlier on, so that's nice. And I'm gonna just wipe that extra carbon off, and you can see that's where the valve travel is, because that's where the carbon buildup stops. And that valve seat is still shiny on there, so we'll just pop that. Actually, I got my brushes here. While I'm at it, I will brush through here, get some of the extra carbon out of this hole. There. Alright, that's all the carbon that came off this brush just from wiping it up in there. And then now we'll stick that valve back in. Since I'm at it, I will just pop the intake valve off as well. Same deal, let's turn that E-clip around where I can get the this one doesn't want to come off that way. Okay. For a tiny screwdriver. Alright. There it is. Okay. Alright. Prying with a tiny screwdriver is a good way to fling those clips across the room, so always be very gentle. And then I like pulling these valves out one at a time, because that way I don't accidentally switch the springs, because the intake valve spring is very light on these engines, because they're just atmospheric intake for the hit and miss part. And so this intake valve, the seat is no good, because you can see there's nice and shiny, and then there's a black mark on the side from where it's leaking. So I'm going to have to try and reseat this valve, or regrind the seat on this valve. So I'm going to have to go get supplies for that and come back. So let's see now. Alright, well, I need to go get supplies to regrind this seat, so we will stop and I will be back. Okay, I'm back. I have valve grinding paste that I made out of baking soda and water, which I ended up with an awful lot because I put in the baking soda first and then I tried to put in a drop of water and it got too thin, but it's got to be real stiff to make sure the baking soda stays put. You can use real cheap toothpaste or any number of things. I'm a fan of the baking soda because the carb here is so close to the intake that if I get a little baking soda in there, when I finish doing the valves, I'm just going to do a quick rinse with vinegar, and the vinegar is going to just clear all that baking soda out lickety-split when it reacts with it. So if you get something in the... It's real easy to get cleaned out of everything when you're done, because like I said, baking soda, just do a little touch of vinegar and it reacts with everything and cleans it all out. So but the valve stem for the exhaust is going to be in the way, so I'm going to have to pull that off and make sure I keep the springs in order. So I'm going to put my exhaust valve and my exhaust valve spring just on there with the retainer cup there. And alright, we're still in a good spot here. So intake valve goes in. I got room to put my paste up in there, and then pull it in by hand, and get that wedged under there. And I've got a 3-jaw in my Dremel, and this is a Dremel with speed control that's on the slowest setting. In here I just pull up and press the valve into the seat a couple times and then wedge more paste under it. And when you're doing a valve job on a car, you want to make sure that you're turning it both ways, because you'll build concentric rings on the seat and the valve that can cause issues. But that is a bigger problem on bigger valves, and also because you're on other engines, you're doing a hardened steel valve against a hardened steel seat. If you get a particle stuck in your compound and it's running between the two hardened surfaces, it's going to cut rings way easier. But since this is a steel valve against a brass seat, whatever you get stuck in there is only going to work on the brass, most likely, and so the key to that is just moving your compound around a lot and taking a break with it. So now let's get our rag and wipe that seat off to look at it. Alright, wipe that seat off, and it's nice and shiny the whole way around. That black spot is completely gone. The valve itself is also nice and shiny the whole way around. So I'm gonna push it through the other way to get a space there. Set this back in there. Put my compound back underneath it, and then going to turn it backwards because the Dremel went one way. I am going to turn it back the other direction a little bit with a bit of compound under there just to even it out a little bit, but like I said, it's because we're seating a steel valve on the brass, only one side of this is getting cut really, and it's only the brass side, so going both directions, like I said, is way more important when you've got a hardened steel seat and a hardened steel valve, and you need to keep track of that. So, alright, I need to go. I did not bring a little dish of vinegar to dip this in because I wasn't thinking that far ahead. Luckily, since I'm just at a table a little bit away from the kitchen, I can be right back in a moment with that and get this dipped and put back together. Alright, I dipped this in vinegar, wiped it off real good. Well, dipped it in vinegar, rinsed it with water to stop the vinegar, and then wiped it off real good. And since there was that blow-by on the intake valve, I'm going to take a minute to brush along up in there and get some of that carbon out of this side. Because the vinegar doesn't work on carbon or anything, it just does the baking soda. So, alright, so, yeah, so polish that all up, that black spot is gone, so stick that intake valve back in and get the spring and the retainer, or the spring and the spring retainer and our clip back on. There we go. And grab our exhaust valve, put that back in, and put the strong spring on that one. And go. And that's that. Set that back over there. Oh, and I pulled the needle out of the carburetor while I was working. So just set that back in there. Alright, well, we're going to go with that valve job was the part that really needed to get done, and I'm going to ignore, move this over here, so we got these dings here. I'm gonna ignore them for now. because they're not inside, and I'm just going to make sure that I set the head gasket back on in a similar lineup. Let's see now. Oh, I'm just going to set the head gasket back. Alright, I think it is. Yeah. Pick the spot that's most likely to line up, and I'm using this black mark on the head gasket with the black mark on the top of the cylinder. So set that in place. Set our head back on. And I know the head's in the right spot because we can set that on there and have the push rod touch the exhaust valve. Just, oh, come on. All right. Put a couple of these others in first, and then get that in place. All right. There. Okay. Spin all these in and then tighten them with a head gasket pattern and try out the ETX again with, now it's got a valve job, that should do wonders for making it work, because when there's just one leaky side on a valve like that, it can seal most of the time, and then if it makes a little rotation away from the perfect sealing spot, it can lose just enough compression. Alright. Alright, and those are all snug. Again, these are such small fasteners, you don't want to over tighten them because they'll stress out and break. But I think that that's top dead center. And how we rotate. Oh, perfect. So that's, since it rotates that way, top dead center comes here just as it releases. Right? Yeah. Top dead center comes up, and the exhaust valve is closed, so it does intake, compression, ignition, and is it hits the bottom, pops the valve open for exhaust. So the valve timing on this engine could be marginally better, but I think we'll start by trying to get it to run. Well, you know, since we're at it, we'll just do it. So bottom, compression, so that's the bottom of the power stroke, and the exhaust valve is already open at the bottom, and then when it gets to the top it starts to close a little early. So there's a set screw on the, there's a set screw right there on this wheel. Let's see now. There we go. Okay. Loosen it. And rotate. Barely get it to move. And that's bottom, top, bottom. Exhaust valve is fully open. Top. I don't know if that changed at all. Oops. Oh, there might be a big flat on that. Alright, well, that's bottom. Top. Alright, so that's bottom. There also, so it's just alright now. I need to use something that's not wooden. Alright. Alright, try that. Top. There, just close at the top. Bottom, top, bottom. Just popped open. At the bottom, yeah. So as it hits the bottom, it pops open, and then it goes all the way up, and it just closes as it hits the top. Perfect. We'll try that. Push this fuel line on so it's not rubbing anything. And while we're at it, let's double check the ignition timing for the spark. So, I took the boot off of this when I was testing it. Forgot to put the boot back on. There. Boot. All right. Boot. Spark plug. Go back and figure out where my alright, that's top dead center. And that is marker. There. Marker for top dead center. Okay, now we can and it's just a couple degrees before top dead center, so the ignition is perfect. Yep. Alright, ignition's right where it needs to be. I could try to adjust it, put it at 0, but anywhere from 0 to like 5 degrees is good for an engine that runs this slow. So, alright, one valve job later and a bit of cleaning, and I think the ETX is ready to go. So we'll try it out and see if it'll run for a while. I'm glad that it was just a little valve issue, because I would have been really disappointed with how well the ETX runs and how much I really like it if there was something more serious wrong that I had to do more work on it. So, hopefully the valve job is the end, and we will try it out next time we get out into the garage.